The meaning of life for useless class. What will people do if technology makes jobs useless? Yuval Noah Harari conducts research on the worthless class and defines a new meaning for life. Over the next decades, most of the jobs that exist today may disappear. In view of the constant development of artificial intelligence, which is capable of more and more tasks every day, it thereby displaces the human factor from an increasing number of professions. However, at the same time, there will be many new professions related more to creativity and flexibility. And it's not clear whether 40-year-old unemployed taxi drivers and insurance agents will be able to join the new sphere of information technology. Even if we assume that people of aging professions can find themselves in someone like a designer of the virtual world, progress will lead to the fact that a person will again have to reorganize in a new way in the next 10 years. The problem isn't in the number of places, but in creating jobs for people whose work the algorithm does worse than a person. So it's quite possible that by 2050, a new class of people will appear, a useless class. Not just unemployed people, but people who cannot be employed. However, a support system through some scheme of universal basic income could help useless people. In this case, the real problem will be to keep people engaged in any purposeful activity, otherwise they'll go crazy. So, what can you do with a useless class?
And when you look back in history, people constantly compare the threat of automation and job loss in the 21st century to what happened in the 20th century. In the 20th century, you saw automation in agriculture, so lots of unemployed farm workers moved to working in industry. And then when automation reached the industries, they moved to working as cashiers at Walmart. But in those cases, what happened was that people lost low-skilled jobs and transferred to other low-skilled jobs. Moving from being an agricultural worker to working in some car factory in Detroit, you moved from one low-skilled job to another low-skilled job. When you lost your job at the Detroit car factory and got a new job as a cashier at Walmart, again, you moved from a low-skilled job to a low-skilled job. But the next stage, if the next stage means I'm losing my job at 45 as a cashier at Walmart, and now there is an opening as a software engineer at Google designing virtual worlds, this is going to be much more difficult than moving from the car factory to Walmart. And it's very likely that even if there are new jobs, most of the unemployed masses will not be able to make the transition. It's also a big question about young people that nobody really knows what the job market would be like in 20 or 30 years. It's really the first time in history when nobody has any idea what kind of jobs and what kind of skills people will need in 30 years, which means that we have absolutely no idea what to teach children at school. Most of what they learn is going to be irrelevant to the requirements of the job market and of society in 2050.
In Chapter 5, we stress the importance of Black Americans constructing traditional business communities and practicing group economics based upon their competitive advantage of being a nation within a nation. The envisioned retail business communities would be a good first step. However, retail outlets would not be enough, especially if they are constructed as standalone businesses. They lose the unique advantages of being a part of a new developing Black community. We need complementary businesses that can produce interrelated products and services to magnify our competitive advantage in the marketplace. The nature of complementary businesses allows them to be vertically integrated into a traditional framework that can attract, hold, and redistribute large amounts of wealth and technological resources. Black America needs to own and operate industries within its own business communities that are competitive with businesses outside of the community. In our use of them, and in our use of the term industry, we are referring to certain types of classes or collections of businesses and business activities that are needed to that are needed to fully provide and satisfy a consumer demand for a finished product. It is not necessary for Black Americans to own and operate every kind of business, nor is it practical. We are a marginalized people who are coming into the business world 400 years late. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Happy Monday. Welcome to On the Shoulders of Giants. I am Joseph Ward. If this is your first time here, I appreciate you. For all my longtime viewers and supporters, I really, really, really appreciate your support. We are covering Chapter 6 of Dr. Claude Anderson's book, Powernomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America. Chapter 6 is industrializing using your new paradigms. Building industries is the first step towards building monopolies. So I showed the video in the beginning about the end of work, because that's what this video is about. Black people really putting ourselves in a better position to not become a part of this useless class. I've showed this video before in the breakdown, but I want to bring that video back because it fit with this chapter and what Dr. Claude Anderson is talking about, especially the integration of technology into human society as much as it is being integrated today. So Black people will lose jobs if we don't do something now to drastically put ourselves in a position to take advantage of and use the technology. Remember, you can think about technology, and I would say in two ways. You can think about technology in the aspect of iRobot, like technology is taking over, or you can think about technology in the aspect of Black Panther, where we utilize technology to advance ourselves, right? That's one of the things that Dr. Anderson is getting at in his book. Not just talking about technology, but industries. We need industries. We don't need money. Yes, we need money, but money is not what we need. We need industries. A group of people who are trying to build themselves, you don't give them money to help them build themselves. You give them industries. And when you give them industries, they can enrich themselves over and over and over, but also creating industries will allow them to build themselves up as a nation. As Dr. Claude Anderson said in the book, we are a nation within a nation, and we need to operate as if we are a nation within a nation. But thank you for being here. Let's dive more in. This is page 155, chapter 6, industrializing using your new paradigms. Now I'm starting on the bottom paragraph at the bottom of the page, behind the industrial power curve. So Black Americans are in the Stone Age in terms of industrial development. Read that again. Black Americans are in the Stone Age in terms of industrial development. Although slavery begot capitalism, which begot industrialization, which begot a continuous flow of technological advances, Blacks were never the owners or direct benefactors of what their labor produced, right? Throughout the industrial revolutions, Black remained captured but loyal customers and mere spectators, chained to the lowest rung of the industrial ladder. The closest they ever came to industrializing occurred between 1865 and 1900. During this brief period, about 3.6% of Black Americans were engaged in some form of manufacturing. Today, other than workers, the number of Blacks in manufacturing has shrunk to approximately 1%, which is not good for building yourself up. Neither white nor Black leaders seem to grasp the importance of industrializing Black America. If Black people do not experience industrialization, a critical development process, there's little chance they will ever be able to compete in cyberspace or the evolving New World Order. Without industries, there's no mechanism for producing Black-owned and controlled technology. Now, let's put this into perspective of what he is saying. This book was published in 2001. We've already read that it was saying by 2015, if Black America don't put ourselves in a competitive position, we will render ourselves to be fourth-class citizens. Now it is 2023, and we have not put ourselves in a competitive position. We've not industrialized. We've not done anything to improve our lot in life. Now, I'm not saying you may not have done anything, but what I am saying, Black America as a whole, Black America as a mass, we have not come together and gave ourselves as a group of people, as a team, as a race, we haven't come together to give ourselves a competitive advantage. Now, those of you who have given yourself a competitive advantage, the key here now is to be able to connect and work with others to aggregate what you got going on and build vertically. That's what Dr. Anderson is preaching. Aggregation and building vertically, owning and controlling everything and being able to profit from it, and then using that profit to expand. So if Black America does not industrialize now, we run the risk of never being able to do so. So that's my fear now. In 2023, it is September of 2023. And have we put ourselves in a position to not be able to industrialize? I don't think it's totally over, but I do think we put ourselves further behind in the game. I can't tell you what the point looks like when it's truly over. I can't tell you that. But I believe that it is not totally over for us at this point. I believe we are further behind, but we have to do something now. It is imperative for us to work together now, like now, right now. Or the country people say right now, right? We need to work together right now, because if not, we're going to put ourselves so much further behind in the game, it's going to be almost impossible for us to make that comeback. And the key is not to catch up to white people. The key is put ourselves in the competitive position for us, put us in the best position for us. Don't try to catch white people. Be better than what we was yesterday. That's what we need to be concentrating on now. So let's get back in it. Page 157, technology in Black America. As the nation moves in this risky direction, it perpetuates the propaganda that what is good for white America is equally good for Black America, which is not necessarily true, which is not true at all. Just because it's good for them don't mean it's good for us, but we keep mimicking things. Technology has not significantly improved the socioeconomic status of Black people anywhere in the world, right? Technology is advancing while Black people are either standing still or regressing. High-tech advocates refuse to acknowledge the extent to which racial benefits intrude into the development and use of technology. They argue that the market forces will cause the right decisions to be made, yet market forces are racially biased. They respond to those with the greatest economic and political powers. In the context of globalization and cyberspace, Black America can take some protective steps to insulate itself from some of the risks that this nation is taking. Black America does not have to totally follow the majority society. Black America has options. If it acts like a nation within a nation, it can set its own direction in some matters, a direction that is in its own best interest. Black America can craft its own industrial policy that includes a realistic role for the use of technology. In terms of competitive advantages, Black America would be much better off competing with third or fourth world nations rather than going head to head with major white nations in America. With major white industries in America. And that's what I just got through saying, right? We have to set a course that makes best sense for us instead of trying to compete with the big dog right now. We're trying to howl at the moon, and we don't have our stuff together. That don't make sense. It don't make sense to try to howl at the moon when you don't have your stuff together. If you can't get to the moon, what you howling at the moon for, right? So once again, how do you eat an elephant? Bite by bite. Take our time, build ourselves up, but we have to do something. Now, we are in a position now to where we can't really just take our time. We have to Yeah, we got to get to work. We got to make some kind of splash or drastic moves, or some kind of impactful moves for us to really help to push us into a better position economically and competitively. But we need industries. We have to industrialize. I agree with that. I fully agree. I agreed with that before I started reading this book. What hammered it home with me was to me was going through a um, a simulation of a society. I had a chance to do that like a month or two ago. Go through a simulation of a society, and the group that I was a part of was the impoverished group. Actually, right? I was a part of the impoverished group. We didn't know we were impoverished till we start interacting with the other groups, right? But in that simulation, members of the other groups who felt sorry for us because we were literally sitting on the floor. We had nothing. We were sitting on the floor. We didn't know other groups had tables, chairs, snacks, water, amenities, and all those things. We didn't know that. We didn't know that until they came and told us, and then we saw it for ourselves. But they saw our conditions, and then they automatically went to trying to give us provisions. But what we were trying to tell them was, hey, once we figured out what we were doing and what was best for us, the best thing for us, the group almost dissolved. We decided to stay together, and then we need industries. So we started lobbying for industries. The other groups didn't understand why we needed industries. We're trying to explain to them, if you give us industries, we don't have to worry about money, right? Instead of giving us money and instead of giving us snacks and provisions, give us industries. Industries will allow us to build ourselves up. It will allow us to develop skill sets that can be passed down from generation to generation, allow us to build businesses and wealth that can be passed down from generation to generation. So, yeah. So, technology and work. We discussed technology in previous chapters, but it is also a critical consideration in our discussion of industrialization. Over the course of the last 4 decades, millions of people have been permanently eliminated from the workforce by technology. First videos, right? Due to the economic and political weakness, blacks were the first to go during the 1960s. Technology made blacks an obsolete labor force. Every black person displaced by technology represents a transfer of wealth to the owners of the technology. The owners benefit from the wages. They no longer have to pay a black labor force, right? Approximately 34% of the nation's black workforce is either unemployed or underemployed. They have suffered from having little or no wages for centuries. The wages that could have gone to enslaved blacks were transferred to white slaveholders. In modern times, wealth is transferred to the business owners. Black people are always displaced, yet dominant society continues to introduce technology because it enriches and empowers them. But even though we participate in the technology, we use the technology, do we benefit from the technology that we indulge in? And the answer is a resounding hell no. Now, unlike any other time in history, computer-driven labor is extracting humans from the work equation. Some displaced workers re-educate themselves and become employed in new careers. Some of us. But like the gentleman used in the example, if you lose your job at Walmart and you're replaced by a machine in Walmart, and a lot of the jobs are in technological fields that you have no skill sets for, your transition gonna be much harder. Not saying you cannot make that 100%, but your transition gonna be a lot harder, a lot harder. But imagine the amount of people who won't be able to make that transition, amount of black people, right? So some displaced workers will re-educate themselves and become employed in new careers. Others find temporary and part-time jobs, but large numbers simply drop out of the workforce, possibly forever. In his book, The End of Work, and I have that book. The End of Work. We're gonna probably gonna end up getting into this book, The End of Work, right? So in this book, The End of Work, the noted economist Jeremy Rifkin writes about the relationship between technology and the economy. He paints a dire picture. According to Rifkin, the United States has entered a new phase in world history one in which fewer and fewer workers will be needed to produce the goods and services used in this country. He says there's a strong likelihood that by the year 2015, and remember, we're in 2023, so we're past this point, only 25% of the people working today will be needed to produce the same amount of goods and services. I'm going to read that again. There's a strong likelihood that by the year 2015, only 25% of the people working today will be needed to produce the same amount of goods and services. Now, we see that totally didn't come true, right? You see that was in 2015. But now, remember, point the framework or frame your mind around. You and I, we're not talking about America as a whole. We're talking about Black America. And we can see that between 2001 and 2015, more Black Americans have dropped out of the workforce. And we can see between 2015 to 2023 that more Black Americans have dropped out of the workforce. So it's happening. It might not be happening at the time frame these gentlemen are talking about, but it's happening. And part of the problem is the fact that even in the economic boom, about 95% of all newly created jobs will go to white suburbs and not to Black inner cities. What happens to Black Americans who were unofficially declared an obsolete workforce nearly 40 years ago and today have a hidden national unemployment rate of 34%. So, and remember, this book was written in 2001. So that 34%, that's what he was talking about between this time of 2001 and 2015. Context matters. Context matters. But what he was talking about, what he was getting at that time was Black America we got to get some fire up under our asses. And we have to industrialize. We have to put ourselves in a better competitive position as a people to build wealth. But the goal is not to catch white America. The goal isn't to catch white America. The goal is to put Black America in a better competitive position, right? It's not to be equal to white America. We're not going to catch white America, especially with not with what we're doing right now. But we can be better. We can aggregate our wealth. We can, people for years, people have said that if Black America aggregated their wealth, we'd be within the top 20 richest nations in the world. Well, what we doing? That's how you get power and respect. So page 162, rationale and criteria for industrializing. Any particular business sectors that Black Americans select to industrialize their communities must be based upon the strength of Black America's competitive advantages and the potential of vertically integrating the industries, right? The criteria that we use to determine our competitive advantages were presented in chapter 5. Some of the competitive factors include high Black consumer demand, cultural identification, control of raw materials, and potential to build vertically in whole or in part. Now let's look at some industries using these factors as criteria. General industries like computers, boating, footwear, cattle, or construction industries would not meet our purposes, right? In a test of industries, we must determine the level of Black consumer demand. Are Blacks culturally attracted to any of these industries? Do Blacks dominate in either the production of raw materials or in the spending patterns? Clearly, none of these industries have high competitive advantages for Black America. They are horizontal industries and apply to everyone. In the construction industry, for instance, Blacks do not dominate the production or purchasing of paint, wood, or concrete. Blacks buy homes, but so do most other people in society. If everyone is equally represented, there are no competitive advantages for Blacks, and the opportunities are therefore horizontal and not vertical. Conversely, professional sports is a far different industry. This industry lends itself to vertical integration, and it is an approved venue for Blacks. Slavery made athletics a safe arena in which Blacks could emotionally and physically vent, compete, and dominate. The vertical integration of an industry works best when our competitive advantages are linked to our culture, labor pool, disposable annual income, and urban cities in which Blacks have political control. Using our out-of-the-box thinking, we can take negative historical conditions and convert them into competitive advantages, such as concentrating populations and consumer spending patterns, which can help to industrialize. So taking industries that we already have interest in and industrializing ourselves within those industries, bringing those industries into our communities and building skills and industries within our community, as well as building wealth, something that we could pass down from generation to generation. He gave an example of athletics, sports. We play sports and we put our money into sports. So Ice Cube's Big Three League right now is the only Black-owned sports league that we have right now. So if Black America was to invest in the Big Three, the Big Three could expand to a full-fledged 5-on-5 full-court basketball league, or it could expand to a full-fledged 3-on-3 basketball league, but it could be a revenue source for Black people. They put it on TV, we watch it, we support it, we put our money behind it, we invest in it, we help it grow, we help maintain it, then we add on to it, and whatever we are a part of, we are owning and controlling so we can profit from it. Vertical integration, ethno aggregation. So recapture sunset industries. I like this. So page 163. First, Black America's national industrial policy should prioritize the recapture of many of the major silent industries or sunset industries. For the past 4 decades, this nation has competitively lost or voluntarily given to second and third world countries many bread and butter industries such as steel, textiles, footwear, watches, household appliances, toys, and electronic equipment, including radios, boom boxes, televisions, VCRs, and kitchenwares. And we know technology has advanced from this. So we know boom boxes and VCRs and stuff like that don't exist. But the point is still given that devices that we use to entertain ourselves and make our lives simple, these things, the industries for these things have been shipped out of America. So if we ship these things back into the Black communities and start manufacturing these things for ourselves, we can build up. As these industries left the United States, collateral damage resulted. This nation lost hundreds of thousands of supportive businesses and jobs. Government trade and industrial policies, such as the 1994 North American Free Trade Agreement, rewarded corporations that abandoned America and moved to third world countries. Communities throughout the United States, especially in Black neighborhoods, suffer a double loss. While NAFTA, which is the North American Free Trade Agreement, modernized Mexico's industries and successfully resolves Mexico's socioeconomic problems, it is creating new problems for Black Americans. This nation's public policies reduce the quantity of American jobs and businesses while increasing the number of businesses and jobs within competing nations. Since the 1990s, the NAFTA policy has created 2.6 million jobs in Mexico and boosted Mexico to the second biggest supplier of foreign-made goods to the United States. Yet, the same United States government failed to create an industrial program to help Black America resolve its national 34% unemployment and 34% poverty and phenomenal overrepresentation in penal systems and the very same cities that American industries abandoned. This is blind difference towards Black America. So basically, like I was saying earlier, industries that were shipped, and Dr. Anderson is getting that, industries that were shipped out of the United States could be shipped back into Black communities, and Black people can take over those jobs that are looked at as low-level manufacturing jobs. And Black people we can put our ego to the side and stop trying to be so white collar and understand that wealth is built by being blue collar. Infrastructure and industries. That's what builds nations. We don't really understand what runs nations, how nations are built. Black people, we have been conditioned to think that we could just wait at the finish line. We've been conditioned to think that we're just supposed to just get the riches because we want the riches. We don't understand, like, nobody's going to give us the riches. You can't argue your way to the riches. You can't whine your way to the riches. You can't protest your way to the riches. You can't march your way to the riches. You got to build yourselves up. We got to build ourselves up. We got to stop doing the stuff that we've been doing that don't work and do what actually really works, what has been proven to work throughout history. But then again, we got to study history too. So, industries abandoned by the third world. So, in this second wave of abandoned industries, Black America ought to be in a position to recapture the discarded industries and produce consumer goods that Blacks consume disproportionately. Japan and China have already passed down the footwear, textiles, clothing, and numerous household item industries to countries like the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. However, armed with a new empowerment vision and tools and demand on the United States government, Black America could bring some of these industries back into the United States and compete based upon its own competitive advantages. Black America's leadership, especially the Congressional Black Caucus, can assist in recapturing these industries by aggressively demanding that the United States government begin to support the industrialization of Black American communities. As Black America begins building these industries, the Congressional Black Caucus should press for legislation and trade laws to protect these Black industries from unfair wage competition in foreign and third world countries. These trade laws and public policies could be framed as a component of the evolving Black reparation movement. Now, I don't know how well. In order to get government cooperation, you have to have respect. So, in order for us to put ourselves in a better position to get government cooperation to compete with third and fourth world nations, we have to have a foundation for ourselves. We still don't have this foundation. We talk about this foundation every week. We got to build a foundation for ourselves. This information isn't just for consumption. This information is for utilization. If you are a person, and I'm guilty of this in the past, I'm guilty of this. But if you're a person who's just consuming this information, you're not doing yourself, your family, and your community, you're not doing us any favors. We have to, we have to do something tangible for ourselves. We have to build. We have to build something tangible for ourselves. If we don't, we're going to fall further and further behind, or we're going to become more and more dependent. And it's going to be over. All we will have from there is hope and ideal. We need more than hope and ideal. We need reality. Our reality needs to reflect our hope and our ideal. But it can if we take proper action. So, how to build new vertical industries, page 167. The third way that Black America can industrialize is to simply survey all existing industries to identify those in which Blacks are playing or could play a dominant role, either as a major producer of the raw material or as a major consumer of the finished product. After an industry is identified, the next step is to determine whether it is possible for a Black startup industry to intrude into the larger industry and capture market share based upon Black skin color, culture, population, distribution, market loyalties, disposable income, government control, and other competitive advantages, right? As we industrialize our own communities, our intent should be to own and control a select number of industries and to control them from top to bottom as much as possible. From raw resources and manufacturing to distribution services and retail customer markets, we want to market each industry as Black America's territory. Vertical integration of an industry creates a potential to establish a monopoly. A black controlled monopoly will help stabilize black communities by concentrating wealth and political power. Taking hold of these industries, marking out a place for ourselves in these industries, creating a space for ourselves in these industries, not by going and trying to be a part of somebody's something, but by owning and controlling our blocks in the market. We're here. We're showing the world that we are here because we are building ourselves up, and we're owning and we're controlling, and we're passing this on, and we're expanding. We're not selling. We're not giving white people control of the market. We're keeping the money. We're keeping the industries to ourselves and passing them down. So capitalizing startup industries, page 168. To build an industrial infrastructure across Black America, we will need two kinds of capital, debt and equity. In debt capital, we borrow cash, paying the borrowed amount back with interest. Black Americans experience difficulty in securing debt capital from traditional lenders for many reasons, including poor creditworthiness and lack of collateral. Impoverished people are labeled impoverished essentially because they lack capital and collateral. Unlike debt capital, equity capital is cash that investors bring to the table in exchange for some of ownership interest in their business, or in this particular instance, in an industry. In return for the equity, the investor expects a percentage of profits and dividends and possibly capital gains. So two ways, two avenues that we could possibly use to help us get funds that we need to build the industries that we need. But you got to put yourselves in a better position to be able to take advantage of debt capital and equity capital. Do we have the leverage for the debt, and do we have the leverage for the equity? You still have to have leverage. Leverage comes with work. Work comes with revenue. Revenue comes with resources. Wall Street and stock market. So a Wall Street investment structure will give Blacks an opportunity to keep our limited capital inside the race, where it can be used to build a base of wealth for Blacks as a group, and individually Blacks will be able to aggregate their money for the purpose of strengthening our race economically. This investment mechanism can be used to create a capital infrastructure of investment banks, bonds, and stock markets, trading companies, brokerage firms, and investment advisors. It also offers a grand opportunity to those supportive individuals of other races that want to take part in reversing the circumstances of Black America. The few Black-owned publicly traded companies currently listed on Wall Street are designed for the traditional purpose of attracting capital that can be used to expand and operate those individual companies. It will be a new financial concept to use Wall Street to pool Black, white, and other dollars for the economic development of Black America. And we've all been on YouTube. We've seen since 2020, there have been more Black people who are involved in the stock market, more Black people who are talking about the stock market, more Black people who are breaking down the stock market. I invest in the stock market myself, and I've been doing pretty good. So all I got to do is keep doing what I'm doing, keep investing. Matter of fact, invest more money in it, and I will have some good stuff to pass down to my children. Right? My children won't have to start at zero. And that's the goal. My children should not have to start at zero because I didn't do what I needed to do financially to put them in a better position. All right. It is hard to conceptualize the magnitude of funds that can be aggregated through a Wall Street offering. Let's propose a hypothetical example. If every one of this nation's 36 million Blacks invested $365 or $1 a day for a year in an offering, it will produce a capital pool of more than $13 billion, greater than the gross revenue of all the Black businesses in America. Just imagine how many Black businesses could be started from a capital investment pool of that size. For perspective, consider that according to Broadcasting Magazine Radio 1, the largest Black owner of radio stations has approximately 52 radio stations with an approximate value of $2 billion. Other capital information mechanisms, such as private placements, involve a limited number of investors, which would restrict the number of Black businesses we would capitalize. An IPO, on the other hand, would allow every Black American who choose to do so to invest and have a piece of the rock. IPO, I think that's independent public offering. So basically, he's talking about being able to, like, Capital One is a Black owned business, a Black owned organization at the time, or TV One, excuse me, Radio One, Black owned corporation at the time, who publicly traded on the stock market, got an IPO, publicly traded on the stock market. This is a vehicle that Black people can invest into to not only build up the organization and build up the equity in the organization, but build up their own personal equity as well. So being able to invest into Black owned businesses within the stock market, or just being able to invest in the stock market, period. But being able to invest into Black businesses in the stock market, it's a win-win for both sides, right? It's a win for the Black owned corporation, as long as we keep investing in the business, keep doing what it needs to do. And it enriches the Black people who invest into the corporation, because it builds their equity as well. So wealth is built on both sides. Black people owning and controlling the whole piece of the pie. We're not just getting crumbs, we own the pie. Black Business Investment Corporation, page 171. When our industrial infrastructure has been established, it will profit from having a national organization that functions like a Black Business Investment Corporation. The BBIC, the Black Business Investment Corporation, should be made up of representatives from major Black industries, local Black elected officials, educators, civic groups, and ministers. The role of the BBIC is to, 1, establish and link a national network of Black industries in urban areas. 2, craft and administer industrial policies of Black self-empowerment. 3, amass private and public funds for industrial growth. 4, coordinate linkages between industry, schools, churches, and other community-based organizations. 5, function as the chief lobbying and political arm of Black business communities. And 6, aid the industries to incubate and commercialize new technology. To simulate sales opportunities as well as provide maximum business opportunities, local BBIC can be established to operate as liaisons between Black industries and Black churches, traditional leaders, families, investment clubs, and government agencies. Working collaboratively, national and local organizations can help rebuild and maintain a positive economic environment within Black communities. I'm just saying, I don't want to keep repeating the same things over and over and over, but you heard what I read. Putting all the pieces of the puzzle together. In order for the full picture to be revealed, each piece has to be put together. But we have to actually put the puzzle together. Can't just have the puzzle sitting in the box in the corner, looking at the picture on the box and saying, hey, I bet that would be a nice picture or a nice puzzle if I put it together. Like, if you don't actually put the puzzle together, you'll only have an idea. We got to get out of the idea stage and get to where we need to be. So, industrial models for Black America. Let's discuss some industries that Black America can develop within our own communities based upon the competitive advantage criteria presented earlier. Ideally, we want to own and control every level of industry through the application of our vertical integration. Realistically, this may not always be possible. However, if we use our competitive advantages, we can at least take control of major aspects of targeted industries. In addition to ownership and control, remember that all of our industries must be constructed and relocated into Black communities. These industries must be in Black communities to build up the communities and the people. The finished products can be made in one Black community and shipped to other Black communities through national distribution networks. Regardless of the industry, we will need a system of Black distributors, wholesalers, and retailers to deliver products to regional and national markets. A Black-owned national distribution system is currently in development. So I don't know what happened to that, but that is what we need. We still need national Black-owned distribution network. So industries that he said we can get into: leather production, urban hydroponic farming, bottled water operations, and sports industry. These are 4 industries that Dr. Anderson is suggesting that we can get into because we already have interest in. So vertically integrated leather industry. The strategy is build on groups' spending patterns. Whites abandoned the leather tanning industry over the course of the last century for a number of reasons. 3 primary reasons were tough environmental standards for the tanning process, the introduction of synthetic leather, and competition from third world countries. The leather industry itself has numerous competitive advantages that makes it prime for Blacks to develop as a Powernomics industry. Figure 16 shows the various operating and business levels of the leather industry. The major competitive advantages that Black Americans have in the leather industry are: Blacks purchase a disproportionate share of the nation's leather goods and apparel. The leather industry lends itself to vertical integration. Black consumers are inclined to purchase based on brand loyalty. That is true. That is true. Manufacturing plants in urban inner cities could have access to a ready labor pool. Major producers abandoned the industry, leaving it open for strong competition. Leather producers are a long way from America, which is the biggest leather consuming market. For a tannery hatery, a Black country has favorable environmental laws, wage scale, and close proximity to America. North and South America are major producers of animal hides. Economic development incentives are available via various government programs. All levels of government, federal, state, and local, must play non-traditional roles to help Black Americans industrialize and establish a competitive leather industry. Blacks should aggressively demand that the government use its capital, program resources, and legislative powers to intervene into the marketplace and create favorable conditions for establishing this Black industry. The book Black Labor, White Wealth provides government officials, economists, and other legal arguments to provide special assistance to Blacks. And if you haven't read Black Labor, White Wealth, you need to read that. All right, the second strategy is urban hydroponic farming. The strategy is building farmers markets within inner cities. Convert abandoned buildings into automatic hydroponic gardens. Form farming cooperatives and farmers markets on unused sites. Organize regional warehousing and wholesale distributors. Market products through a national network of retail outlets. Hydroponic organic farming within inner city communities is about survival at one level and creating wealth and business and building business opportunities at another. Producing one's own food is empowerment. Hydroponic farming is a water-based industry that can produce high-quality food stuff that can make inner city Black communities self-sufficient. It addresses the absence of high-quality, reasonably priced foods, the scarcity of chain supermarkets, and the oversupply and the rip-off stores that sell low-quality food at astronomical prices in inner cities. We can control our food better and have a place in the food market. The third is vertically integrated bottled water industry. The strategy is build businesses around dwindling necessary resources. And if you did not know, water will become a scarce resource in the near future. Water is being publicly traded on the stock market as far as in what is it being traded as? Options. I think options and some other. I think I said it wrong with options, but anyway, water is being traded. I can't think of the word right now, but water is being traded openly on the stock market right now. So the strategy is build business around the dwindling necessary resources. Select majority urban cities within water plants and reservoirs. Acquire production plants and equipment for water purification and processing. Acquire technical expertise. Acquire container supplies. Establish retail commercial office space. Acquire fleet of vehicles and establish home delivery services in food markets. An article in the Washington Post on July 17th of 2000 summarized the findings of a number of scientists that made the case for the viability of this potential black industry. The article said one of the most severe crises certain to confront Homo sapiens is the coming decades will be the availability of fresh water. In recent years, various weather systems, droughts, and coastal hurricanes have demonstrated the vulnerability of our water supply systems and increased public demands, especially during emergencies. The growing demands and security of drinking water makes it an excellent potential business for Black Americans. During the 1990s, the nation and the world suffered unusual weather shortages. These shortages will surely worsen as a result of pollution, changing weather conditions, and overpopulation. Nearly half of the world's population lives under severe weather stress conditions. Reportedly, the available drinking water in the world will decrease by 25% within the next 2 decades, and it is dwindling. Drinking water shortages will eventually come to America, and when they do, the price of drinking water will increase dramatically. In Washington, D.C., residents have been advised during the past few years to not drink tap water. During the summer of 1999, both Virginia and Maryland imposed water restrictions due to drought. In North Carolina, drinking water was contaminated by a hurricane. So another industry we can get into, another market we can corner is drinking water, bottling water. So vertically integrated sports industry. This is the last one. Remember, there were 4, and the 4 is leather production, urban hydroponic farming, bottled water operations, and sports industry. Let me mark this. So vertically integrated sports industry. The strategy is built on racial and cultural niches. All right. As stated earlier, though Blacks have long dominated certain sports, we have yet to establish and dominate the ownership of sports-related businesses. The sports industry offers at least 6 levels of business opportunities. Because sports have always been a viable way for a Black person to gain financial success, it is an idea based upon which to build a vertically integrated order of Black businesses. The industry allows Blacks to combine Powernomics principles. First, dominate the business wherever we dominate and consumer population or where we control the raw materials. Second, create the alternative economy within Black communities. Regarding controlling the raw materials in sports, be mindful that though Blacks make up approximately 80% of football players and 48% of baseball players, 50% of basketball players, 80% of basketball players, 75% of boxers, 50% of football players, and 48% of baseball players. The really big money does not go to the ones running or playing with the ball. The big money goes to those who own the industry's raw materials, and the raw materials are the players. The owners of the teams, the stadiums, and the professional services. Those who manufacture the balls, uniforms, and equipment also do well financially. So there are many, many, many ways that people can profit from the sports industry, that Black people specifically, we can profit from the sports industry. Shout out to Mr. Sam Carter for going out of his way to teaching young Black people how to find non-traditional jobs in the sports industry and enrich themselves and build industries within that. Mr. Sam Carter is one person that I know for a fact is doing it because I've seen him doing it with my own eyes, and he has a program created to do it. So yeah. So he also goes on to talk about telecommunications and mass media, right? These are additional industries he is saying we can take advantage of. The strategy is use Black experts to establish a national daily newspaper, a television and radio network, and film distribution ship. In order to achieve the Powernomics vision of a Black America that is self-sufficient and competitive, we must have a national means to communicate, inform, and disseminate images of ourselves. Mass media and all other areas of telecommunications could be a base for vertically integrated businesses, vertically integrated industries. The music and entertainment industry. The strategy is build businesses around racial and cultural richness. Vertical businesses can be built wherever a group has access to raw resources that are staples of the industry. In vertical integration, whoever controls raw resources and markets will reap the profits. They can leverage their position to control middlemen and other support businesses, such as distributors, promoters, marketers, and manufacturers of tangible properties. Music entertainment represents another industry that lends itself to vertical integration. The music created by people of African descent is the foundation of this nation's popular music, as well as the music of Latin America and the Caribbean islands. Black music is in various forms. Black music in its various forms is a $1 billion industry, of which Black people themselves receive less than 1% of the $1 billion that we help to generate. Opportunities through strategic alliances. The strategy is building businesses within safe harbors by contracting with an established company. So it is not always necessary for Blacks to reinvent the wheel in order to start a successful business. We can build safe harbor businesses by flipping gaps within existing mainstream businesses. Strategic alliances linked to a major company, for example, strategic alliances linked to a major company are examples of safe harbor business opportunities. Most major corporations believe it is cheaper to contract with an outside company to perform some functions rather than to bear the in-house production expense. For example, some major manufacturers find it cheaper to supply their customers with components and parts rather than totally assembled pieces of merchandise. Putting these parts into a kit is an example of a process that a business might contract out or enter into a strategic alliance with a smaller business to perform. This form of assembling is called kitting. Yeah, it's called kitting. Okay. Large corporations like Ford Motor Company, IBM, and Lucent Technologies award contracts to firms that do nothing but kit various kinds of merchandise. A kitting company would need logistical software, large open assembling spaces and tables, and a labor force. All right. So this is another way. Kitting and strategic alliances is another way that Black people can. It's another industry that we can create for ourselves and something that we can do to industrialize and be able to build wealth and build industries for ourselves, build generational wealth. We keep talking about building generational wealth, but we don't have generational wealth building businesses. We're starting businesses, but we don't own industries. We don't have real industries, real economic competition, or a real competitive advantage as a business community. So we need to rethink what we do as far as business and how our business is being conducted. Are we productive? Are we competitive? Are we moving forward, or are we being stagnant or even regressing? Is the business in Black America up to par, or do we need to get our business together? That is the question. I think we know the answer to that. I think we all know we need to get our business together, but what will it take for us to get over the hump to actually become a nation within a nation, to aggregate ourselves, our raw materials, our minds, our wealth, and our resources to do what we need to do to become competitive? What will we do? So that's chapter 6. Chapter 6 goes from pages 155 to 184. So that's chapter 6. So we only have 2 chapters left, I believe. Chapter 7 and chapter 7 and chapter 8. And chapter 7 goes from pages 185 to 222. So if you haven't caught up, read chapter 6 so we can get into chapter 7 next week. Practicing group politics. So let's continue to do what we do, continue to strive, continue to rise, continue to empower ourselves and become a greater and better resource for our community so we can make our community better, leave our community in better hands than it was when we found it. So I'm Joseph Ward. This is On the Shoulders of Giants. Happy Monday. I love you all. Make sure you catch the next video.